Yo, what is good, camp believers and high performers? Welcome to another episode of the Can't Believe I Made It podcast. We are going to, as we kick off season 7 again, if you have not had a chance to go back to episode 101, I love the ring of that. Episode 101. Still crazy that we're past 100 episodes. If you have not had the chance, please make sure that after you're done with this podcast, that you go back to that episode and just get a little bit of a life update. There's been a lot of transitions, a lot of change in my life that I'm really excited about, that I really had to go through just to get to a point where I'm making sure that I'm checking in with myself. And that's what these podcasts are about. I hope for you as a listener and as a pod family, I hope that it's a really big jolt into that intuition, into that heart of yours, into that hero inside of you that maybe hasn't had a voice for quite some time, or maybe is kind of going through it, or even maybe just needs to celebrate where they're at. Like, I hope that I'm jolting the right areas, if you will. So with today's podcast, we are actually going to be hitting you with some of your favorites, a Mentorship Monday episode as this gets dropped on 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to those. Hopefully you're spending time in family, food, and all the things that we talk about on this pod. All right. So all that being said, and this is what I really want to kick off season 7 with, is posing questions and challenging you and providing that jolt that I just talked about to awaken the hero within you. All right, so today's big question as we kick off our Mentorship Monday episodes, and if you're brand new to any of this, I just want to welcome you with our Mentorship Monday episodes. We're going to be recording 12 to 15 minute episodes that are digestible. You have your action items, you have some pandering thoughts with some of the questions that I ask, and then you go forward with your life and then get different aspects of how we're going to, portray our message. All right. So all that being said, let's kick it into our Mentorship Monday episode for today. The big question that I have to pose for you: how do you know when it's time to call it quits? Let me ask you that one more time. And this could be a habit, a ritual, a program, a job, a business, a relationship, whatever that is in your life, right? Because when we look at a high level life, a high performing life, we're going to touch on a lot of different aspects of helping you, one, to keep your side of the street clean, two, to make sure that you're showing up as your healthiest and your highest self into all of the things that you view as you, right? And that spans across relationships. It spans across what you do, your creative endeavors, how you think, how you feel, like all of those things. And so I want you to put that lens on real quick as I ask you the question once more. How do you know when it's time to call it quits? I've actually been having a lot of people, whether they are in some of my one-to-one or group programs or just conversations that I've been having, where I think a lot of people are just kind of going through it. I don't know if it's the moon or whatever that is. For those who are way more inclined and stuff like that, please hit me with the DM, shoot me a text, educate me. But there's something that's going on in the water right now where I am talking to a lot of people who are having some conversations about when it's time to just quit. And I wanted to introduce to you the 3 questions, or rather the 3 things that I help them to get some clarity on where they're at, because sometimes we're kind of in that season where we have to quit. We almost have to sometimes rebrand it into our mind of like, this isn't quitting, this is me putting it off till later. But listen, how often does that later happen? I'm a firm believer in this. And this is me not only talking to you as an expert and a mentor who mentors others in their high level and high performing lives in business and health and in the way that they interact with the world, all of those things. That's me talking to you here. And then also me talking to you from a place of someone who has quit on himself, someone who has ongoingly struggled with his self-love, with his mental health, someone who has struggled in the past with suicidal ideation. Like there's just so much that comes up for me when it comes up to quitting, where I'm just like, I got to ask the tough questions. I got to give you the honest. If you're asking me for some feedback, I got to be honest with you, because most of you coming into this, if you're under the assumption that, one, you're not where you want to be, and then also at the same time, two, I can try to do this on my own. Listen, I think it's fair to say that if you could do it on your own, you would have already. And so these 3 questions of what I like to do, and this is like across the board. So with these 3 questions, what it's meant to do is to build clarity with where you're at in your season. And sometimes pausing or taking a break might be that thing. But most people who end up taking that pause or that break or just end up sort of waiting for life to slow down, friends, life doesn't slow down. We learn how to adapt with it. Okay, because what I'm trying to really push a lot of you to start thinking about is there are many people who get caught up in that idea that, and I would like to view it as a limiting belief, that idea and limiting belief that I'll go do this when life slows down. I'll go be the hero in my own hero's journey when life allows me to do that. And sometimes it might just take some grit and some hard conversations around where you're at so that you can get some clarity so that you can make the best decision for you in the long run. Okay, and so let me bring you into the 3 questions that I like to pose when someone is just questioning themselves, because I think questioning yourself, I think it's a really normal thing. I'd be completely lying to you if I didn't say that I didn't question myself. And I'm happy to kind of sit here and say, like, I don't really question. Let's just look at this project, just this one, right? Let's just put our lenses on for the Can't Believe pod. I have had moments where I'm like, I don't know if this is it. They've been very seldom though. And I think when those things are happening or some of that self-doubt starting to creep in, I also need to observe what's going on in my life and what those messages are meaning for me. So as I talk to you and you're sitting there really working on your habits, your rituals, whether it's your mental health, your health journey, whether it's a business, whether it's just you going through the process of trying to be a healthy version of yourself in your relation, whatever that is, I just want you to make sure that you're present in some of the questions that I'm asking you. And so as I do that, I also want you to put on the lens of just observation. You're going to be answering these questions, but I also want you to observe some of your thoughts, your behaviors, and what you have to say to these questions. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First question, we look at significance. All right, we explore your why here. So let me ask you the question if you're someone who is thinking that you need to quit or take a break or whatever that is, okay? Because I think it's a very normal thing. So significance. Why is that? We're going to insert the goal or insert the habit or insert the ritual. Why is blank important to me? What am I willing to assure that it gets done? Because that question's a little bit layered, right? And something that I like to help people get some clarity on is not only why that thing is important to them, but why it was important for them to start with. Because most people kind of come in and let's just take health just for instance. I've been getting a lot of people reaching out that are like, hey, I really need some help with my health and my nutrition and some other things. And so before I even bring them into the process of creating a program that's going to work for them, I'm asking the tough questions right away because I want to help them understand what this is about to entail. Okay, so if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I really want to feel more comfortable in my body, or I really want to get to a point where I'm confident, I really want to lose weight. Other people come to me with some of the same business questions. I really want to build a business that I'm proud of. I really want to be an entrepreneur. I really want to get myself out of this 9-to-5. And I always ask them the question, okay, cool. That is great. Why is it important to you? Because as you start to explore that question and start to explore what is of importance to you, you also start to uncover your value systems. A lot of people, when they're coming to me, it just might be they want to lead a better legacy for that next generation. Others might say, and this goes across the board, others might say like, hey, I really want to feel confident in my body because I really want to get out there and explore a relationship that means something to me. My own personal self-worth has taken a huge dive because I don't like the way that I look. I really want to build this business because I want my family to have financial freedom. Like, okay, cool. Why is that important to you? And friends, more often than not, when we explore that importance, it has to do with past conditioning. My parents never had that. So I want to make sure that I set up the next generations as I build this business. My parents or me growing up, I got told that my body was different or that it was displeasing or whatever that is. And I don't want to make sure that I make that same mistake. There's a lot of reasons why we want to do something. However, when you're in that space where you're questioning yourself, asking yourself the question, why is this important to me? And what am I willing to do to make sure that this gets completed? So I want you to take a pause just to write that down for yourself. This can be a really beautiful 5-minute journaling exercise of why is insert that ritual or habit. Why is that important to me? The next thing that I look at is evidence. How do I know this is important to me? Is it that others see some of the progress that I'm making? Is it that I see some of the small wins? Is it that I compare myself to who I was a year or 2 years ago and I don't even recognize who that person is because I've made X amount of progress? Like, there's just so much that goes into this. And so when we look at the evidence of why you even started this habit or this ritual, this journey, this business, whatever that is, this journey, let's just look at it as a journey, okay? How do you know that your journey is important to you? What evidence have you seen in your life that it's important? Because let me tell you something. If you've spent more than at least 30 days trying to navigate something, if you have been failing and failing and failing and failing and getting down on yourself for more than a year because this thing keeps popping up, my friends, guess what? It's fucking important to you. Okay, so that's the other thing that we look at. We look at the evidence. Why is this important to you? How do you know? What sort of things have gone on in your life that you know that this is something that's important to you? And the third question, I think, is probably one of the most empowering. I like all the questions that I'm asking here, but I think this one, for me, takes the absolute cake. Okay? So this looks at, what if you didn't have it? What if you never went down this journey? And what I like to do here is I'll do some imagery with people. I'll say, okay, let's go ahead and just put some lenses on real quick. The lens of this was never a part of my life. And what I usually like to do is kind of bringing people back to where they were on day one or day zero, rather, when they start a journey with myself. Because I always like to congratulate people when I work with people like, hey, I'm super excited to do life with you. And oftentimes, a lot of the people that I work with come back, they're like, I kind of like that. Like, what does that mean? Well, as a mentor, I'm someone who is going to help you and challenge you and ask the big questions and then help you to build out systems for yourself. So in a lot of ways, I'm doing life with you because I'm also inviting you to show up unapologetically. And I oftentimes find that that's a really hard thing for people to do. So if we put those lenses on, like this never happened, I like to ask this question. So if I never started and had to question whether X was important to me, right? Whether this journey was important to me, what would my life look like? And I think this is a powerful question because if the person comes back and says, you know what, this isn't what I wanted, my life probably would have been a bit better. I don't think that I got what I needed out of this journey. I usually gladly say yo, that's great awareness. That's great clarity. Congratulations. Maybe taking a step back or maybe quitting right now is not really quitting or taking a step back, but it's next journey because this wasn't for you and that's okay. But if you find yourself answering the question more out of, I like to call it almost realistic scarcity, more out of, wow, I was really unhappy back then. And I can imagine that I would continue to be really unhappy. Wow, my health was at a huge risk. I'm so, hadn't I gone down this journey, I probably, and I can't tell you how many times I've heard this too. Can probably tell you that I probably would have had a heart attack, or I probably would have had a mental breakdown, emotional breakdown. I probably would have lost my relationship. Hadn't I started that business, I probably would have been in the same damn job thinking about ways just to try to survive when I'm not working. That brings the Sunday Scaries, by the way, to a whole new level, because I have talked with a lot of people who have come in and said, hey, Des, I really need some help building this idea, honoring my ideas, and building this out so that I don't have to go back to the job that I just had. And I'll ask them, like, okay, well, what's wrong with the job? It's not so much the job, it's that possibly they feel undervalued, possibly they don't feel like their ideas matter, or even worse, they just caught themselves simply existing and not living. Okay, so as I ask you these same questions, as we come to a close with our very short Mentorship Monday episodes, I want you thinking about, if you are that person who is questioning where you are up to this point, I want you to give yourself a little bit of self-compassion, because more often than not, it's not really the cost of what this is costing you. It's not really the time commitment. It's not really like, there is a season, but it's not really the season. It's about your own expectations on yourself. And I can tell you, friends, I've been doing this for a long time. More often than not, the expectations that people put on themselves are incredibly unrealistic. No one holds them to that standard except themselves. But that's exactly what keeps people stuck. And that's exactly how I help, where we build out systems, we build out rituals where we help them to identify with people who take better care of themselves, people who take risks, people who take their creative endeavors and are able to establish and apply and take action on those things. That's why I love doing life with you all. All right. So as always, I want you to take time with some of these things. You can take a 5-minute journal with each one of these questions to ask yourself, hey, is this something that means the world to me? And if I'm struggling in this area, what do I need in order to get back to where I was, to where I can freaking believe in myself? Because these episodes, this whole podcast is meant to ignite the hero within you. I love you all. I'll see you on the next episode. Season 7 is here. Let's go.